And joined over the phone by Ambassador Medhat Meligy, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Good afternoon, sir.
Yes, good to you.
So, sir, how do you see the latest developments in Rafah?
Well, actually, I think the ball now is in the Israeli side. We have Hamas who accepted the release of the hostages. We have a certain guarantee, since Egypt is the one that is who brought this initiative to life, that it's going to be executed from the Palestinian side. However, we are not yet sure of the Israeli reaction to this initiative initiated by Egypt, and we hope to see a positive answer which will spare the life of the Palestinian and stop the genocide that has been taking place for the last 7 months in Gaza. So we hope that this, since it contained the release of the hostages, which will answer the Israeli request, will be sufficient so that the Israeli would accept it. However, there will always remain one point from the Israeli side, as they requested from the beginning, and they have declared this from the beginning, which is not just the release of hostages, but that Hamas would put their weapon down and in a certain way surrender, and not to initiate any attacks on Israel, which we haven't heard anything about this side. Plus, of course, the Israeli wish to demolish totally the military side of, or the military wing of Hamas.
And sir, to what extent these developments, these latest developments, will impact efforts to reach a ceasefire agreement?
Well, the first thing is that we have to have a positive Israeli answer, and accordingly, we will have more aid. We will, the Palestinians will be able to rejoin their houses and their homes, whether we are talking about the north or central Gaza. There will be a lot of steps to be taken, and of course the most important one is the medical and humanitarian aid to enter freely to the Palestinian. I believe that they have been on the verge of starvation, and this is going to be the first need that has to be answered from the Palestinian side. But the most important thing is to rebuild Gaza once again and to restore all its civil facilities. I mean, we've seen the destruction of schools, we've seen the destruction of universities, hospitals, homes, everything. Gaza is totally devastated right now. So will Israel permit that Gaza live again? This is the question that will remain full point. Let's not forget that we don't have in front of us all the conditions of the initiative, the Egyptian initiative right before us, but we know the headlines or the major lines of the initiative. So there will be other things regarding the truce and regarding the possibility of resuming a peace process.
So, sir, after Hamas accepted the ceasefire deal, the Israelis started the aggression in Rafah. How do you read the moves by the Israeli sides, and how do you see reasons for the Israeli rejection to the ceasefire agreement?
Well, actually, I think that Israel, it's not in the government interest to stop the war right now. The Israeli government, of course, I'm talking about. Because the Israeli government, as we have said before several times on this show and other programs as well, that the extreme right government, the extreme right-wing government in Israel favors the idea of continuing the war, because this is what enables this to stay in its place. And since the 7th of October, there have been a lot of demonstrations against the Israeli government, and they insisted on continuing the war because this would secure their seats as government in power in Israel, especially that the prime minister is accused of several criminal accusations, and he might be facing even prison, as some observers are saying this. So it's not in their favor in any way, or in their interest in any way, to stop the war. That's why we've seen some attacks, which is not the major attack on Rafah as they claim it, but they are still continuing their war in order to maybe provoke Hamas so that fighting will resume. Because, as I said, it's not in their interest to stop the war right now, even with the troops. They want to continue, and they want the invasion of Rafah, because this will secure their place on one side, and on the other side, they think they can secure by this the total destruction of Hamas, which is one of their main objectives since this war started on the 7th of October. So that's the main problem, is that they still have another wish to totally destroy Hamas, and they think Hamas were clever enough not to swallow the bait and to accept the conditions that were proposed by Egypt in order to avoid their own destruction as an organization of liberation, or an organization of resistance for the Palestinian people. And I hope that we will have a positive answer from Israel, although that there have been some harassment, as we can call it, until now, and there is still declaration about the necessity of attacking Hamas, not just by the general public in Israel, but also from the extreme right government, and especially the far right of this government. We are talking mainly about the head two ministers, Ben Smotrich and Ben Gvir. Both of them, they want to continue the war, of course, along with the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. So this is the problem with the current equation, that Egypt is putting everyone in front of their responsibilities. Hamas accepted, but Israel did not yet give their final accord on to go on with this initiative of Egypt.
So, sir, how is the difference between the Israeli government and the hostages' families impacting the Israeli local political scene, and how is the continued failure by the global powerhouses and bodies to end the bloodshed in Gaza affecting their power and legitimacy?
Well, I have said it before, and I repeat, it's very important to know that over 98%, according to Israeli statistics, Israeli official statistics, are seeing that Israel or the IDF did not exceed in using his firepower, which means that although we have almost 35,000 Palestinians who were killed, and the Israeli public still see that this was not too much. But their problem is with the hostages. So, and this is what worries me, that if Hamas will release all the hostages without a guarantee from the Israeli side that it will not wage its war again on Gaza, this might be a plan. And this is what actually worries me, that Israel, as we have seen, doesn't want the war to stop. So what are the guarantees that we have that Israel will not try to provoke the war once again, especially after it takes back the hostages? This is the main thing that Israel has to confirm its readiness. If they accept the Egyptian initiative, just like Hamas did, that they will stop all hostilities on Gaza and on the West Bank, and of course on a later stage to resume peace talks. The Israeli public, although they don't see too much firepower used against the Palestinian people, because they are not the least concerned about the Palestinian people, but the main objective of their demonstrations, of their fight and conflict with the Israeli government is just the hostages. The minute that they will get the hostage, you will have an Israeli public opinion unified against the continuing of the destruction of the Palestinian people and Hamas. And that's what any government of Israel has to pledge, that it will not resume its war on Hamas after releasing the hostages. And this, I think, something that Egypt is aware of, and I am sure that we will try to get all the possible guarantees before any initiative could be executed or a court to be implemented.
Yes, I'd like to thank you, Ambassador Medhat Al-Meligy, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Thank you, sir, for being with us. And back to our reports from the African continent. And Chad started counting votes on Monday evening in a presidential elections aimed at ending 3 years of military rule that opponents of junta leader Mohamed Idris Deby have dismissed as fixed. Chad is the first of 4 military regimes in the Sahel to hold an election after successive coups in Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger since 2020. Details follow.
Dozens of security forces in the capital amid rising tensions on Monday as polls closed and vote counting began in the first presidential election in Africa's Sahel region since a wave of coups. According to reporters with foreign agencies, soldiers and riot police patrolled the streets alongside at least 30 armored and other military vehicles in the opposition-friendly southern neighborhoods of the capital N'Djamena. The streets, normally bustling in final hours of voting, were quiet. Chadian media said at least 1 voter was killed in the Central African country's second-largest city, Mundu, South N'Djamena, after unidentified gunmen opened fire at a polling station. Analysts say President Mohamed Idris Deby, who took over the day rebels killed his long-ruling father Idris Deby in April 2021, is most likely to win, although his chief opponent drew larger-than-expected crowds on the campaign trail. Monday's election pitted Deby against his Prime Minister's success, Masra, previously a politician opponent who fled into exile in 2022 but was allowed back a year later. Also running were former Prime Minister Albert Pahimi, Paraki, and 7 other candidates. Yala Dilu, an opposition politician who had been expected to run against Deby despite coming from the same clan, was shot and killed in N'Djamena on February 28. It was the day the election date was announced. Some opposition members and civil society groups had called for a boycott, citing concerns about possible vote rigging.
And from South Africa, rescuers scrambled to search for some 50 people trapped under rubble after the collapse of a multi-story building under construction in the South African city of George, killing 5 people. George, which has a population of about 160,000, is a picturesque coastal city located on the tourist trail along South Africa's southern coastline. Details follow.
Rescuers in